Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this, a Tuesday, February the 8th, 2022. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you about my co-host. She's the reason why I'm not watching the Beijing Winter Olympics because, hey, she is a platinum medalist when it comes to getting the truth out there. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila? Sheila, I'm so sorry, but we have a technical difficulty. I don't know if you can hear me, but I cannot hear you for some reason.
Oh,
there we are.
Because I had my microphone muted. That's fine. Because when you called me, I went upstairs. Like when the office called me, I went upstairs to get a coffee, and I thought they don't need to hear me rummaging around my house, so I put my microphone on mute and then forgot to bring it back on. But what I was saying was, David,
Yes.
I have missed your introductions. While you were gone, every woman needs someone cheering for them the way you cheer for me.
Well, it's so wonderful to know that there are some women that welcome my presence as opposed to running the other way from me. But what's wrong with Adam Seuss? Why can't he do the 5-star introduction for you? You are certainly worthy of it, Sheila Gunn Reid.
Nobody does it like you do, David. Now,
wasn't that the name of a song in the 70s?
you know what? I'm sure that's the first time in your life anybody's ever said that to you.
You are correct.
I know that I am a lot smaller than David in real life, but I feel like we are not to scale currently. David looks like the Hulk. No, don't make me bigger. Make David smaller.
Yeah, I look like the Hulk when in reality I'm more like Ant-Man. So, if we can fool around with that. But
Swamp Thing.
Enough chicanery, Sheila. It is so busy. We have a topic sheet here. Holy mackerel. I don't know if we'll get around to even half of these, but also a heads up, I believe Premier Scott Moe will be having a presser. I think it was to start a few minutes ago, but, these fellows are always late, especially Justin Trudeau. I mean, he has an arduous commute, one flight of stairs down that cottage of his.
Three steps.
I know, always
steps.
at least 20 minutes late in his own house, right? But in any event, why don't we very quickly get to the housekeeping rules that you're so good at stating, Sheila, in terms of what we're trying to do here and why we might have to port away from YouTube at some point.
Sure. The day today, the news, there's so much. So we've got an announcement from Scott Moe. Jason Kenney just tweeted a few minutes ago that the return to normal in Alberta will be announced at 5, but he put if in like his tweet, like if pressure continues to decline on hospitals, we might have the best spring ever. Sure.
Yeah.
And we have the guys, we've got news about a Liberal, finally, the first one breaking ranks with the party over lockdown restrictions, and the first one to say that, hey, maybe we actually should listen to the 100,000 people that showed up on our doorstep to tell us what they think of us. Maybe we should just go out there and listen to them. And we've got just breaking just moments ago news about Pastor Art Pawlowski. So we want to get to that. We're just sorting out the details now. We've already got lawyers engaged, as we tend to do with Pastor Art. So we'll get to that right away, but I'll get the housekeeping stuff out of the way right away, and I'll do it as quickly as possible for regular viewers who get annoyed that I do this every time. But I have to assume that some of you are new. Thank you for being with us from the very beginning, but we're getting new friends all the time. Okay, so this is the Rebel News Daily live stream. It used to just be on YouTube, just on Fridays, just hosted by Ezra. But then the pandemic struck. There's more news than ever. So we expanded it to 5 days a week. The problem, though, with YouTube is that they are now a censorship platform. They demonetized us, and they put this whole host of crazy rules about things we can't talk about, things that you could talk about on NBC or CNN. But if Rebel News says them, gone from the internet forever. Just pretend like we don't even exist. So we don't want to abandon YouTube. We are broadcasting on actually now 4 other platforms simultaneously. So when we get to a point on YouTube when we are going to say things that will get us canceled, we just cut the feed altogether. And we encourage the people watching us on YouTube to maybe come over to another platform that doesn't care about your politics, like Odyssey, Rumble, and Super U, and all 3 of those give you a way to support the work that we do completely willingly, instead of like what Justin Trudeau does with the mainstream media. He just reaches into your pocket and he's like, here, you guys are making stuff nobody wants. Here's some money for that. And we're also live streaming simultaneously on Getter, which is new for us. But Getter is the free speech alternative to the censorship platform of Twitter. And I've made a commitment to spend a little bit more time on Getter than I do on Twitter, because why am I giving Twitter my gold for free? So I'm going to start spending a little bit more time over on Getter. And those are the nuts and bolts. Now, Mr. Producer AD tells me that Scott Moe, he's live now. Do we want to go to that? Oh, and there's Kelly.
Hello.
We're having some audio problems with Premier Scott Moe, but I see our friend Kelly, our Saskatchewan-based journalist and Saskatchewan analyst, let's say. She's joining us to give us some expert analysis on what Scott Moe has to say. So maybe cut back out. I hear his audio.
Hello. How is everyone today? I looked giant there. Geez.
Transmission of Omicron like it did with previous variants. And I will continue to encourage everyone and anyone that is eligible to go out and get vaccinated, your first, your second, and ultimately your booster dose, as vaccines most certainly do provide significant protection against serious illness from Omicron or any other variant. However, if someone makes a different choice about whether or not they are vaccinated, that's their right, and this government is going to respect that right. Today, with Omicron, the benefits of the proof of vaccination policy no longer outweigh the costs. This policy most certainly has run its course. So it's time for us to take a step back in living with COVID and to make every effort to get our lives back to normal. It's time for us also to heal the divisions in our communities over vaccination. Those divisions are in our families, they're in our communities, but they are across our province and they're across this nation. It's time for us to come together as families, as friends, as communities, and as a province and as a nation, and it's time for us to reach out and support one another. Let's not judge our neighbor because they may be vaccinated or because they may not be vaccinated. Let's not judge our neighbor if they should choose to wear a mask or not to choose to wear a mask in the weeks ahead. Whenever someone is doing their own personal risk assessment, which we have asked them to do in this province for a period of time now, they're doing that assessment for themselves, possibly for their family, and they may come back with a different decision than what you might arrive at. And that different conclusion, albeit maybe different from where you have landed, should not be judged. It should be respected, and it should be accepted. It's time for each of us as individuals now to make a conscious effort to treat everyone in our daily lives that we encounter equally. It's also time for the proof of vaccination mandate to end. So effective at midnight this Sunday, February the 13th, all provincial proof of vaccination requirements will end. In Saskatchewan businesses, in venues, and provincially regulated workplaces, this means that the proof of vaccination or the negative test option that we had provided will no longer be a provincial requirement. Starting on Valentine's Day, February the 14th, this will be the case. This will leave one remaining COVID measure in place, and that is indoor masking. That measure remains in effect until the end of February. I want to thank all of the businesses and the venues and the workplaces who have shifted course throughout this pandemic to keep their employees and to keep their customers safe, and all of those who implemented and administered the proof of vaccination or proof of negative test policy over the course of the past few months. Thank you for doing your part in our fight against COVID. And again, I want to thank everyone who made this choice. It is a wise choice to ultimately go out and get vaccinated. You are keeping yourself safe. As we move into this next phase, the phase of now living with COVID, I would ask you to continue to make wise choices. This is paramount to our success. Go get your booster dose if you haven't already. Stay home if you're not feeling well. Do a rapid test from time to time. If you do test positive, we want you to stay at home for 5 days. But let's all, in the meantime, also get back to living our lives normally and doing the things that we all love to do. And let's all make that extra effort to be just a little more understanding of others when we may disagree. In fact, this may well be our largest challenge in getting our lives back to normal in our families, in our communities, in our friendship groups, and in our province. We must realize that it's okay for us to disagree. We do hold strong opinions in this province, and those are on full display often. But we can disagree without being disagreeable. Don't lose a friend to COVID. You might have to take some time apart, but keep that door open. Time and time again, Saskatchewan people have proven that we achieve great things when we come together and when we work together, and when we accept those who may have a different opinion than we do, and when we respect others' individual decisions. We are poised to lead this nation through COVID, and we are poised to lead the world in an economic recovery in this province. So let's work together. Let's work together to heal some of the divisions. Let's understand that we can forgive our friends, our family members, maybe even ourselves, if that is necessary. Let's work to heal those divisions. Let's come together, and let's once again be ourselves in our communities. This is a great province. This is a united province. But most importantly, this is a tolerant province, and we are going to need all of that tolerance in the days ahead. It's time for us to move. Thank you. Dr. Shahab, do you have some comments?
Thank you, Premier. I'll just clarify a few things.
I think that's good.
Obviously, vaccines remain available 5 to 11 for second dose.
Yeah, I don't need to listen to the public health necromancer tell us about vaccines for kids. I'm good. Yeah, look at this ridiculous man. You could tell. I could tell his politics by his mask. But that was phenomenal. That was great. And that is a politician acknowledging that this has not just separated people because of the biomedical police state, but this has politically separated people, that families are divided now over the issue of vaccine passports, social distancing. This has cracked families and societies apart, and he's right to call for tolerance. I don't want to see somebody, like, I just gave that guy a hard time because he's just sitting there wearing a mask in a press conference 8 feet away from the next person. So I'm not the best person to be talking about this. But at the same time, yeah, if you see somebody who wants to live in fear and drive around in their car with a mask, I might just have a little chuckle to myself, but I'm not going to yell at him. And I hope that the same goes the other way, and I think that Scott Moe feels the same way.
Well, Sheila,
Go ahead.
I'll take the end of proof of vaccination mandates over a dozen roses on Valentine's Day any day, and a month, of course, as Premier Moe said, no more indoor masking. It looks like what do you call him, the necromancer? I wonder if
Necromancers.
I wonder if his mask comes off anytime soon. But, I see we are joined
Yes.
by our Saskatchewan correspondent, Kelly Lamb. How you doing there, Kelly? And since you live in that province, what's your take on the Premier's announcement?
Well, I'm all smiles right now. Even though I didn't get such an incredible introduction as Sheila did, I'm a little insulted, but otherwise I'm in a great mood. This is fantastic news. I was live when he made the announcement that he was going to eventually make this announcement, and I was excited then, but a bit trepidatious because you don't know what's going to happen. He's lied a couple of times. It was very vague, and then he kept announcing that he was going to announce it, and he would announce it again, and here we are finally with a resolution of some kind. So I'm pleased, and like Sheila said, I'm very pleased to see that not only is he addressing the logistical elements, but he is addressing the societal elements and how this has affected people and telling people to be kind to each other. Now, I will say, to hold him to account, he was not so kind in the beginning. I've called him out on that a couple of times, as I'm sure other rebels have. I think it was December 7th, he spoke about taking away the stigmatization of the vax. And that was the first time we saw him sort of turn a corner in his language. Before that, it was very much, we're sick of this. You know, we don't have the patience. We're not asking you to go to Normandy. We're just asking you to get a needle. It was very degrading. So it's nice to see that he has shifted, turned a corner, and now that has led to action, which is extremely good for this province. And he is going to take flack for this from the media. So he better be prepared in the weeks to come.
And ladies, let me throw this out to you. I want to get your point of view. I might be wrong, but, you know, the detractors of the Freedom Convoy say, aside from these truckers and their supporters having a big temper tantrum and honking horns, what have they tangibly accomplished in the almost 2 weeks they've been here? Exactly, Sheila. I think you see provinces moving to end the mandates. I think this was the catalyst for Aaron O'Toole getting kicked out of caucus.
Sure.
I think it was the catalyst for Pierre Poilievre finally throwing his ring back in for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. Am I wrong here, or are we seeing tangible benefits?
No, it's one of those rare times that you're right. I'm kidding. We watched Jason Kenney go from we're rolling restrictions back at the end of March to, maybe we're going to do it at the end of February, to we're going to do it in a couple weeks from now, which would have been like Valentine's Day, to he's making announcements today about rolling restrictions back immediately. And that timeline didn't just jump back 60 days because the science suddenly changed or things suddenly changed in hospitals. The political climate changed. And I don't even think the political climate changed. I think there was a tangible manifestation of how people are really feeling taking place in a convoy. It's easy to say, well, I think people are feeling that way, or the polls are showing this. But when you have entire Canadian communities dumping out onto the highway to show support for a convoy that has no intention on ending, and a growing blockade in Coots that has turned Milk River into the biggest town in southern Alberta, where farmers are engaged in civil disobedience once again here in Alberta, that can spook a lot of politicians. Like the second the convoy landed in Ottawa, Scott Moe was like, you know what? We're opening up. Science, follow the science. We're following the science, and science says we got to open up. When it was clearly the convoy. The very day it landed in Ottawa, that's the day he made an announcement. And I know because Kelly was on air with me when it happened. I do think it's kind of weird, though, his timeline, because Valentine's Day, you will be kissing through a mask because indoor masks are till the end of the month. So that's weird, but whatever. There's a lot of people who will do that. We've seen it.
And I want to ask, Kelly, you know Saskatchewan better than Sheila and I, of course, being there. If you were to commission a poll, for example, on what Premier Moe just announced, does this get majority thumbs up or thumbs down?
Well, like with other places in the country, it very much depends on where you are. So if you're in rural Saskatchewan, even though generally speaking, a lot of people are vaccinated, most people, the rural folks, don't want to throw their neighbors under the bus for not being vaccinated. They still want to be normal. It's your decision. It's a much more common sense thing, generally speaking. That said, the fear has gotten to people as well in Saskatchewan. And it was surprising to me how much, but it depends on, of course, I guess the demographics and whatnot. But I find in general, people here have been less toxic, less caustic to each other over this. And so for me, I think that this is going to be big because a lot of people just said, we're doing it because Scott Moe said so. And when you ask people their reasoning, whether it's employers in the sort of industry sort of side of it, or whether it's more governmental agencies, most of them have done it because the higher up said to, and the higher up does it because the next higher up says to, and so on. It's only being done because he sanctioned it. And so a lot of these people are going to be relaxing just because he said they can. And I've already seen this happen at my mother's condo, people that were very staunch and very afraid, and they put down this strict mandate and they were very cocky about it. And as soon as he said he was going to lift it, it just took one person in that senior's condo to say, hey, maybe it's time. And they thought, well, if Scott Moe did it, we'll do it. And so I think that's really what's it's going to come down to. People in Saskatchewan are caring for each other. We're the type of people that raise more for, Telemiracle every year than other places. We're the kind of place that started universal health care. We are not cold to other people's needs. And I think what happened was just a massive propaganda campaign of telling people that there's only one way to care about your neighbor, and that is to get the vaccine and then shun other people if they don't have it. Thankfully, most people didn't fully get on board, but it is going to be a shift. And we do have a lot of people that will be mad. The NDP are going to be really upset about this. But I think for the most part, from what we're seeing at protests and stuff, the counter protesters to the convoy and whatnot are pretty small. It's pretty minimal. So if you read the MSM, you'll see a different view. But generally speaking, people are done. And I think they're ready to move on. And they don't care whether their neighbor is vaccinated or not. So that's what I'm hearing in general.
Well, I got to tell you, I think you're right, Kelly. And of course, what is the NDP not upset about? And I got to tell you, after spending the weekend in Ottawa, just got back last night, I felt like I was in a time machine. I went back in time to 2019. Nobody was wearing masks, even into restaurants, the few in the downtown core that were open. People were so friendly. There were hugs all around. Haven't heard anything of downtown Ottawa becoming a super spreader for any of the various variants of the coronavirus. So, Sheila, let's get back to normal. I got to tell you, the last few weekends I've been watching the NFL games. Again, it's like a different universe. A stadia that seat almost 80,000 people, no masks. They're sitting cheek to jowl, no social distancing. And when you look at whether it's Kansas City or Tennessee or Los Angeles, there's no spikes in the coronavirus. What is holding up all the other provinces from getting online as of right now to get back to normalcy?
Politics. We are run by a bunch of people who have never done anything genuinely good for another person in the world. And so this is my non-scientific, just my own observation of the world. The desire to hang on to masks and restrictions and distancing and vaccine passports is driven by and large by the most selfish people in the world who have never done anything for anybody else. And so they have this thing that shows that I'm just like a hero. I'm a hero because I wear this mask and I'm saving lives. And so when you take this away from them, this thing that says that you're a hero, you're just like a police officer. When you take that away from them, they go back to their life of mediocrity and they don't like that. They're going to hang on to it with both hands. And that's what I think there are going to be a lot of people who are wearing that mask and hanging on to restrictions and stomping their feet as a symbol of their own virtue that they don't normally have in other times. They're not the kind of people who shovel anybody's walks for funsies. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you're right, Sheila. But here's the thing. When it comes to the COVID Karen community, we're not forcing you to go and sit unmasked in a restaurant or an arena or a movie theater. If you want to stay at home and get Uber Eats to bring your food in, morning, noon, and night, and leave it on the porch and never have any kind of physical human contact, you can do that in the technical world that we live in these days. So in other words, if you want to remain isolated, that's your choice to do so. We're not forcing people to get back to normal if they kind of dig that. What's your take on that, Kelly?
That's where I'm at as well. I think Sheila had it bang on. There's definitely a virtuous element of look at how much I care about everybody else. And I have to say, it perfectly echoes the voice of Justin Trudeau last night when he was just basically telling people 10 different ways of how to care for each other, but not really telling anybody how to care for each other. It's just such fluffy language, and people are stuck into the fluff of all this. And unfortunately, wearing a mask is an easy way to just, if you, like you said, Sheila, if you don't want to do any hard labor or charitable action or sacrifice of the self for the world or your community or others, this is a great way to just throw something on, and you can take a picture of yourself and you can hashtag it and tell everybody how wonderful you are. And I do think there's going to be people that have found way too much power with this, as well as the bully hall monitor types that will not want to let go because they've been given this sort of social license now to act the way that they've always wanted to, but have had to sort of keep it at bay to sort of fit into society. So I think that it's going to be an interesting shift in the coming days, weeks and months. and maybe years. This is so far reaching when it comes to masks. We're dealing with kids and we're dealing with speech stuff. We're dealing with relational stuff. We're dealing with economic stuff. The fallout of this medically, financially, socially is unprecedented, and it's going to be really amazing to watch what the next few months have to bring, I guess. But it's this is a great place to start, and I'm happy to see that Saskatchewan is returning to some bastion of common sense, which I thought we were, and then we weren't for quite a while, and he was diving into all the rest of the rhetoric, and now it feels a little more, like you said, David, I get this sense of, right, that's why I used to be so proud to be Canadian. When I watch stuff in Ottawa, or when I watch people here doing their protests, it brought back a little something that had kind of died in me, to be honest. So this is a good start. It's a good start.
And you know, Kelly, it was very rich indeed to see the Prime Minister talk about how we should be caring for each other, while in the same sentence vilifying and demonizing the truckers and their supporters of the Freedom Convoy. And like I said, I spent 4 days in Ottawa, and you know what? Didn't see any toppled statues, didn't see any broken windows, wasn't ducking from Molotov cocktails being tossed, didn't see any hate. These people, even when encountered with counter-protesters, were so friendly, so nice, salt of the earth, real Canadians, having a peaceful protest. If you believed what the government was saying and the mainstream media, my goodness, you would think this was really a hate fest going on in Ottawa. The precise opposite is true. And I see the Ottawa police are now amping up their demonization of the protesters too. It's really, like I said, really rich to see the Prime Minister talk about all you need is love when he's the biggest vilifier in Ottawa right now.
Yeah, you know, I think we're going to jettison from YouTube just to be on the safe side. So if you are watching us on YouTube, might I suggest you move over to Getter, Rumble, Odyssey, and Super U, and Rumble, Odyssey, and Super U. Why don't you send us a chat? Support the work that we do, and we will read that on air. Mr. Producer will send it to me in a message, and we will read it on air and do our best to address your query, question, concern, comment, or story idea. Yeah, you know, speaking of Justin Trudeau, he talks a lot about caring, and as you know, the best way to care about your neighbor is to use the full force of the police state to encourage them to freeze to death by confiscating their fuel and arresting